Good morning, everyone. Oh, it's going line. Good morning, everyone. Working through trying to get everything adjusted correctly. So it's been a busy morning already with phone calls and calls about this, but we're trying to get everything set up. Is Linda going to come in? You want to sit in here, Kendall? It doesn't matter. I mean, I just know that as questions come in from everybody, I'm going to ask the officers to, if I can't answer them directly from what I have in front of me, we're going to take them and research them. So we're live right now. Yep, we're live. You want to say hi? So we've got some of the other officers here to help me with questions.
Hello, everybody.
Linda, come on in. There's Linda, Kendall, Terry. Al's monitoring the other computer. So what we're going to attempt to do today is just go through scope. And my phone's already got flooded with other people trying to, hey, would I mention this, or would I mention that, or would I mention probationary period? IAM guys calling me. Would I asking me questions about how do they get out of their IAM pension and get into the 401k that we have? I can't answer those questions. I can answer the one on the probationary period real quick while others, morning Pat, are getting set up. I'm in this temporary office and it's quite the mess, but we're trying to get prepared. Mr. Peterson, Gary Peterson, is working, he told me, with the company to try to figure out the question of the probationary period. So he owes me a phone call. He said he would when he got some resolution, and try to get that out to everybody. Today we're going to go over Article 6, recognition and scope. Now, what I do want to say first is that I want to cover M&R scope and MLS scope, but the maintenance training specialist, Jack Moore, one of our executive shop stewards, he's been involved, and I hope, because I cannot, because I actually physically did not sit with those folks this whole time. We used to have David Corbett as an officer. He retired, and Mr. Corbett sat with the MTS specialist the whole time that they were reviewing their contract, and then Jack Moore and picked up the ball from there. MCTs, maintenance control technicians. Come on in, Kendall. Just find you a spot there. I'm kind of spread out here. The maintenance control technicians, Jason Best, our chairman and 514 member, he obviously is going to cover that for us, and all the maintenance controllers are down at Dallas. So today will be MLS scope, M&R scope. So just as you have a question, try to write. They're going to just text their question on this format, and it'll come in. You'll be able to monitor it.
Yeah.
And the guys here will write the question down and get it to me. So might answer them as we go along, or we might answer them towards the end. But I believe from Terry's attempt at this last week that the questions are delayed coming in. So there's no reason for me to go too fast and get all the way past your answer and have to come back to it. But if the delay is such that we don't get the question and we've already moved on, try not to get too upset. We're trying to use some modern technology, which is not too modern. It's pretty old, but it's modern to us. So I'm going to make an attempt at using this. And later today, we're going to cover a couple more articles, and we'll just get better as we go along. So let me just start. I didn't prepare. I don't have cheat sheets here. I wanted this to be pretty much raw as you have your books. Some have been mailed out to you. I've been seeing pictures of people's Facebook posts where they've got their new contract and they're using it to fix the wobbly table in their house, or using it for toilet paper. Hey, I get it. But today, if you have it in your hand or you don't have it in your hand, we're just going to simply do a page turn here. I'm going to use the M&R, and then we're going to do MLS, or I'm going to let if Linda wants to sit here and do it, I'm going to let her do it, but we're going to try to get through M&R and MLS. So here I go. So first paragraph talks about pursuant to the National Mediation Board in May 19, 2015, the certification, the NMB case, and that basically says that they have the sole collective bargaining to do what they do as far as representing us. All right. Paragraph A, except as otherwise provided in this article, the aircraft maintenance work, facilities maintenance work, and ground service equipment maintenance work on aircraft, ground equipment facilities performed for the company is recognized as covered under this agreement. The company agrees that the work described in the classification of Article 7 and the following described work, wherever performed, comes within the jurisdiction of the association is covered by this agreement, including but not limited to. And this next paragraph says everything that we do. Number 2 says everything that we do. And number 3 talks about things that we do. And what we tried to do was take everything in the TW book, everything in the IAM book, and merge them together. So if you are reading the blue book that we have, you'll see that things are in here, but there's a lot more in here because obviously that's what was in the IAM book too. And we thought it was best just to put the two together and list them. So if it feels redundant to you, there's a reason for that. Paragraph B, except as otherwise provided for in this article, the scope of work for aircraft maintenance planners, senior aircraft maintenance planners, quality assurance auditors, senior quality assurance auditors, technical documentation specialist, senior tech specialist, and senior bill of work, EO, AD planners is described in Article 7 classification. Those groups are people that we call accredited. The IM represented them, and if we had them here in Tulsa, which we do, then they were picked up. They used to be company employees. Now they're union, and they're IM. And so that just says that the description of their work is listed over in Article 7 in classifications, which we are not covering today. C, when ground equipment fueling is not subcontracted, it will not be deemed a violation of the agreement for a company employee to fuel the equipment he is operating. There shall be no increase of the subcontracting of such fueling work beyond what exists at DOR, which is date of ratification. And as I go along here, I'm going to try not to praise people or throw people under the bus. I'm just going to simply give you my opinion of some of these things as how they came to be, but there will be some things that I was not in the room for. That's kind of a sore spot with me, and I'm going to try not to get into it as we go along here. But for M&R scope for the TWU side, I was told that if I supported the process going forward, that was going to be the executive negotiating team, that I would be able to cover scope for the TWU side for base, and that did not happen. Be that as it may, I'm not terribly upset at how scope is written. There's some numbers in here, and we'll get to those that I did not agree to, but that's not going to stop me from voting yes on this contract, and we'll describe them as we get to them. DOR is data ratification. The company has stated that they're going to ask that we pick up work that may be currently today performed by a vendor. And that's how they're going to try to prevent having a layoff or a reduction in force. They're going to let vendors go. And at this time when they're parking airplanes, they're going to let vendors go, and they're going to ask people to pick up that work. So that's good that they've made that commitment. D, it is understood that the company reserves the right to continue to return to the manufacturer or its authorized agents parts and subassemblies for repair or replacement that cannot be repaired on the property due to lack of equipment or because of warranty. So here in Tulsa, there should never be a lack of equipment. So if they're trying to get rid of equipment in your area, that's something that I'd like to know about. They can send things back for warranty, and it's written in here that they can do that. So just heads up on if they try to get rid of equipment that pertain to aircraft that we currently have on property. That would make me raise a red flag. Outsourcing of aircraft engine and component base maintenance. So here we go. E, at a minimum, the company will perform base maintenance work in Charlotte, CLT, Pitt, Tulsa, DWH, except for the exclusions provided in this section. As to Pitt, the company will continue to perform base maintenance work at Pitt for 5 years from date of ratification, provided that the number of base aviation maintenance group employees consisting of crew chiefs and tech crew chief, aviation maintenance technicians, AMTs, inspectors, overhaul support mechanics, crew chief, cleaners, and cleaners at Pitt is 50 or more. If at any time during the 5-year period following date of ratification, the number of base aviation maintenance group employees at Pitt drops below 50, the company may discontinue all base maintenance work at Pitt. In addition, at any time after 5 years from DOR, the company may discontinue all base maintenance work at Pitt, regardless of the number of base aviation maintenance group employees at Pitt. So I'm told that Pitt is currently what they call tracks. They have a few tracks there. I believe what I'm told is those guys do good work there. And at their age, I think here in Tulsa, we're around age is 58. A lot of guys were looking at an early out, I'm told, but the early out's not the 105,000 that was initially dangled out in front of everybody. So I don't know that guys in Pitt want to retire or continue to work, but there's the language that it says. If they go below 50 in 5 years, they can discontinue base maintenance there. I don't have a lot other information about Pitt and what's going to happen in Pitt. I suppose if those guys want to keep working and turning out the work that they're doing, that they'll keep bringing work to Pittsburgh. DWH will be considered a hybrid-based maintenance station with the following conditions. DWH-based aircraft overhaul and direct support shop employees, as described in Section F of this article, will continue to be applied to base minimum headcount and outsourcing cap formula set forth in Section F of this article. The company may schedule up to 25,000 man-hours of scheduled line maintenance work to be performed at DWH on an annual basis, which will not apply to base maintenance in-sourced man-hours as described in Section F of this article. So what does that mean, basically? DWH can perform 25,000 man-hours scheduled line maintenance work to be performed at DWH. So it's a hybrid, where here in Tulsa, if we continue to do the B checks here, or if any line work comes over to the base, it has to be counted as outsourcing of line maintenance. So at DWH, there's been some grievances on record that I don't know how they'll end up resolving them, but this new language at least gives them something in the future so they don't have to have that disagreement. They have 25,000 man-hours that they can do of line maintenance. In compensation, DWH folks will get the line premium. So here in Tulsa, if you perform line maintenance, like at Hangar 80 and over at the terminal, you get the line premium. So F, company-based maintenance employees will perform at least 50% of greater of all aircraft overhaul and modification base maintenance work, inclusive, meaning inclusive of narrow and wide-body aircraft as follows. On an annualized basis, for every billable hour of work by aircraft-based maintenance vendors performing company overhaul and modification base maintenance work, modification work, scheduled drop-in maintenance, and any drop-in maintenance relating to fuselage damage or any other damage, there will be an equal or greater number of paid hours to company-based maintenance employees. This includes crew chief, tech crew chief, AMTs, inspectors, OSM, crew chief cleaners, and cleaners assigned to base maintenance in aircraft overhaul, modification, and direct support shop as set forth in Section 1 of this article below. So it said 50% or greater of all aircraft overhaul and modification base maintenance work. So aircraft overhaul is the key to what we're talking about in F and what we're going to talk about in 1, 2, and 3 on that calculation. So there was one other thing up here I was going to point out. Hey, and this group here, if I miss something as I'm going along, just sound out. Okay, here it is. So it talks about who it includes. It includes AMTs and all these different classifications in aircraft overhaul, comma, modification, and direct support shops. So when we get ready to get into one, the direct support shops, the shops that the preponderance, the majority of their work supports what's going on in AO out here on this Tulsa base, or DWH, or Pitt, or Charlotte. If there's a back shop that supports the majority of their work supports AO, it's included in this headcount number, which is good because there's some other pieces of the scope language that gives us some numbers to keep back shops where we're currently at. So the greater the number in AO, the greater the number that's going to be in the back shops. So let's get into that. In number 1, it talks about how they're going to make this calculation. In making this calculation, livery work, paint, that's paint work, not the painters out in AO. It's basically new paint jobs or aircraft that they're going to have repainted. Pat, did you have
external paint?
Yeah. Pat said external paint. So livery work may be outsourced, and the vendor's billable hours do not count as overhaul and modification based maintenance work, but other work performed by the vendor during the livery visit may be outsourced, and the billable hours for such other work count as overhaul and modification based maintenance work. So I'm gonna go over that again. But other work performed by the vendor during the livery visit may be outsourced, and the billable hours for such other work count as overhaul and modification based maintenance work. I'm not for certain what, if you're going to go get a paint job, what could possibly be maintenance performed by them that would be outsourced. And I'm not sure how to keep up with that. I'm not sure that if we have an RO committee or if it gets reported out, hey, while they were there, there was a problem with an elevator or an aileron and it got pulled and sent in. Maybe that's what that's talking about. But it'd be interesting to see if anything was performed at a paint facility that was outsourced maintenance. B, warranty work may be performed by the OEM or its contract agent, and the vendor's billable hours do not count as overhaul and modification based maintenance work. We kind of talked about that previously. If it's warranty work, the original equipment manufacturer can perform that work, or its contract agent who performs that work for them. C, aircraft lease return maintenance visits may be outsourced, and the vendor's billable hours will count as overhaul and modification based maintenance work. No biggie there. D, aircraft line maintenance work performed by base maintenance employees, including phase checks and lower level checks above a transit/daily check, example A and B check, service checks, periodic service checks or equivalent, checked by another name, and any unscheduled drop-in maintenance will not count as overhaul and modification based maintenance work. So we do some B checks here in Tulsa, and that's line work. So there's that paragraph. 2, if the vendor billed hours in any calendar year exceed 50% of the total combined vendor billed hours and the company overhaul and modification based maintenance paid hours, Such deficit hours will be added to the subsequent calendar year required company overhaul and modification based maintenance paid hours. So if we catch them going over and we can prove it, they have to add that amount of hours back on our side the following year. 3, the company shall maintain a system-wide minimum headcount of 2,600 active base maintenance employees, which includes crew chiefs, techs, AMTs, inspectors, OSMs, crew chief, cleaners, and cleaners assigned to base maintenance and aircraft overhaul, modification, and direct support shops. Again, there's the word direct support shop. As set forth in section, is that one of this article across its active maintenance bases. So we have DWH, Pitt, Charlotte, Tulsa. We have a floor of 2,600 active base maintenance employees. That's not to say we should have a number in there that's exactly the head count we have the day we vote, and if this gets ratified. This is simply to say that we have 963 airplanes, and if they want to park half of those airplanes or more than half of those airplanes, that the 2,600 of AO and AO direct support shops, they can't go below that head count number. So I'm good with how this number works with the back shop support number and the component number, the OSM number, and the engines. So 2,600. If you go up to the Pitt language, what was that Pitt language? In E, the previous page, there's no disclaimer in there that when E and F3, it doesn't reduce our 2,600 if they choose to do something different with Pitt if they fall below 50. We still maintain the 2,600 regardless of that. So G, the company may elect to insource or outsource the maintenance, repair, servicing, overhaul, inspection, or modification of aircraft engines and auxiliary power units. The company, however, will continue to insource the work to be performed on JT8 D200, CF680C2s, CFM 56-7 and -5 engine types, and 131-9B, 36-280 DHF, and 331-500 APUs, consistent with current practices as of data ratification for as long as the company continues to use such engines and APUs. I've had a few phone calls. Why in the hell would you guys write in language that talks about engines that are going to be on airplanes that we're parking? Well, you have to start the conversation somewhere. And so when we started this conversation long time ago, we obviously couldn't foresee the future. We couldn't foresee, I mean, you know that 767s are getting older and the 57s are getting older, and eventually they will retire them, as well as the MD-80, which is retired now. But we had to start writing something in, and that's where we're at. And if we continue to perform engines and APUs, as I know that we're capable of, guess what? They'll want to bring their engines here in our engine shop to get them worked on. So we've got what we could get. I liked Jay Potter helped me with this and had to educate me up to speed on it. But to try to have the scope on engines be tied to spend would have been a good thing, because the cost of engines, the majority of it is parts, is what the most expensive piece of engine is. So, but we weren't able to achieve that. So we did get some engine language. Had it gone the way that it started off, we just would have simply had the IAM language of 50% AO, and we wouldn't have had engines, and we wouldn't have had component back shops. That was a fight that lots of conversations, lots of phone calls to try to get us to the point where we're at now. It wasn't something that was just rolled out in front of me and said, "Oh, hey, by the way, Dale, you got all these shops in Tulsa, and we want to do a great job protecting them." That was not the case. We had to fight like hell, and like I said, I don't want to start tossing people under the bus on this video. It just those phone calls that I've gotten, the people in the engine shops that don't like this language. Could it have been better? Maybe, but I wasn't allowed to have that conversation with the company on your behalf. So we got what we got, and we fight going forward to try to get every new engine that that the company uses on their aircraft. So just those that aren't happy with it, keep doing the great job that you can do, and I hope that that leads to the next contract if you're still here. That we can secure the next type engines that come down the pike. So here we are. We got some protection, and I hope that you can understand that getting some engine protection written in is better than what it was going to be. Let me leave it at that. H, the company may elect to insource or outsource the maintenance, repair, servicing, overhaul, inspection, or a modification of aircraft components. The servicing, maintaining, and repairing of tools, equipment, and the servicing, maintaining, and repairing of ground radio equipment. The company, however, shall maintain a minimum headcount, excluding those members working in Section 1 below, of active component shop employees equal to at least 20% of the active, keyword active employees across the system who are working in the aircraft overhaul, modification, and direct support shops. Again, important word, direct support shops, because that increases the active employees number, which increases your 20% number, as set forth below in section I in making this calculation. The company shall include crew chief, tech crew chief, AMTs, OSMs, inspectors, crew chief cleaners, and cleaner employees working aircraft overhaul, modification, and support shops listed below in section I of the minimum required group of active component shop employees. However, at least 40%, another key piece of it, 40% will be aviation maintenance technicians. In making the calculations provided for in section H of this article, the headcount included for aircraft overhaul and modification will be those employees assigned to the aircraft support, modification, special visit docks at all maintenance bases. Number 2, the headcount included for aircraft overhaul direct support shops will be those employees assigned to the following shops wherever located, including but not limited to TULE, Tulsa. These shop names are effective July 2018. Any change will be communicated to the association prior to inclusion of the calculation methodology. So plastics, composite repair center, paint, fiberglass, lab and galley, seats, floorboards, cleaning, exterior structures, flight controls, thrust reversers, hose tube, cable, duct, interior, sidewall, reveals and shells, manufacturing, AO mill. So we're thankful that they're included because it increases the big number, which increases the component back shop number. Line maintenance. J, I don't know that I want to really cover a lot of line maintenance. I'm probably not the guy to answer that. If you got a question about line maintenance, shoot it to me, and if I can't just give you a basic answer, we'll ask Mr. Gary Scheibel and see if we can get an answer out of him. But I will cover this first paragraph. The company, at a minimum, will maintain 26 line maintenance stations staffed on all 3 basic shifts, and will utilize the line maintenance AMTs covered by this agreement at the following stations: Boston, Charlotte, DC, DFW, JFK, New York, LAX, LaGuardia, New York, Miami, Chicago, Philly, Phoenix, San Francisco, St. Louis. Is that STL? St. Louis? guys?
Still St. Louis.
Yeah, St. Louis. And at least 13 other stations as determined by the company. So this is the only little Tulsa piece. 13 stations as defined by the company. So we do line work here in Tulsa at the terminal. And so I've yet to hear, but it'd be interesting to hear if this ratifies what 13 other stations they will determine to be doing line work. If they point the finger at Tulsa, then Tulsa will continue to do the work on those aircraft in Hangar 80. I think I'm reading here. I'm not going to cover the rest of line maintenance. I'm just looking to see if something pops up at me. They have some cleaners out in the line stations, and in paragraph O, it talks about where they have aircraft cleaners, they will continue to do that work. So look through line maintenance. If you're someone that's in Tulsa, I will say that in qualifications, it's been since 2013, it's been a goal of mine and a position of mine that if you work on aircraft that are sitting on the ground on their own wheels, or if you work on aircraft that gets jacked up in the air and the wheels aren't touching the ground, you're still an aircraft mechanic. Bless you, Pat. So what that means is in the past, it's been difficult for people to get hired on. Bless you, Pat.
That was a squeaker.
So you would get hired on at what we would call a place that did type 8 work. And then if you tried to transfer out to the line, sometimes it was difficult for you to go there or to go there and get help to learn the differences between the line and the base. We don't do a lot of logbook work here. Here at the base, a lot of our work is you're kind of focused on being stuck doing one particular function for a year or a career at a time, and you don't get to move around the aircraft and learn all the systems. So then when you would try to go to the line, you would have that difficulty of knowing the other systems. So we did fight hard to get where if you worked here in Tulsa, in DWH, in AO, you was grandfathered in for the line test, A25 test, and you could transfer straight to a line. So what I'm at least happy for going forward is that if you want to go to the line, you can go. You may need to get up to speed on a few other things, logbook requirements, but there's not obstacles for you to go from the base to the line anymore. So if you're a line person and you want to know about line scope, read this. If you got questions about it, send them to me and we'll get an answer. Facilities maintenance, Q, scope of facilities maintenance work at airport terminals. And then R is scope of facilities maintenance work at maintenance bases. So I'm going to go over R. If you got a question about Q, send it to me. Facilities work at maintenance base. The scope of work to be performed by employees covered by this agreement at Charlotte, DWH, Pitt, and Tulsa base locations is maintaining, repairing, servicing hangar infrastructure and docking, machinery, power plants, wastewater. To the extent that the company maintains control of such facilities and equipment, the company will assign skill-specific work based upon the needs of service to employees covered by this agreement, or the company may utilize a vendor to perform the work. Skill-specific work may include, is that a typo there? Should we have a D? I'm writing a D in my book, may include work performed by carpenters, plumbers, electricians, electronics, lock and key, HVAC, millwright, stationary operating engineer, hazardous waste, wastewater treatment, and welding. The assignment of skill-specific work is based upon trade. However, nothing precludes plant maintenance employees from assisting another trade to meet the needs of the company. The company may outsource concrete, fencing, painting, and major carpentry projects at Tulsa. Not real happy about that one. We have some protections around our jobs at our bases. For those of my good friends in those areas, not happy about that little sentence right there. I guess the one thing that you can try to rest easy about is that we have some job protections, and as long as you're here and employed, you'll be doing the work that you're doing today. This line makes it sound like that we would do none of this work, but when we get into classifications, you'll see that in classifications, the description of facilities works does include painting and carpentry. The company retains the right to outsource non-routine work or in such case where the existing skills, facilities, or equipment are not sufficient. That should not happen in our areas. Again, if you see them trying to get rid of equipment that we use, let a shop steward know so we can ask the question. Because if they get rid of equipment and then turn around and go, hey, paragraph R, page 12 says we can outsource that work because we don't have equipment. We need to be asking people if they're trying to get rid of equipment. All right, scope of facilities maintenance work at airport hangars. The scope of work to be performed by employees covered by this agreement, and it lists the cities and hangars and maintaining, repairing, servicing hangar infrastructure, and docking machinery, power plants to the extent that the company maintains control of such facilities and equipment. Scope of facilities, T, scope of facilities maintenance work at other locations. At any location not listed above in sections Q, R, and S of this article, or with respect to any work not described, the scope of work for facilities maintenance will be determined by the company. Such work may be performed by facilities maintenance employees covered by this agreement or by its vendors. Ground support equipment, GSE maintenance. And it lists the cities there, and Tulsa is one of the cities listed. All ground support equipment maintenance will be performed by employees covered by this agreement. The company will retain the necessary manpower, equipment, tooling, facilities, and other resources in these locations in order to continue to perform such GSE maintenance. The scope of work covered by the terms of this agreement, however, does not include major overhaul or repair of engines, transmissions, or painting of the equipment, or any other work for which the company lacks the equipment, skills, or facilities. The company shall not use vendors to perform major overhaul or repair of engine, transmission, painting, or equipment at any of the named 14 GSE locations, except that GSE warranty work may be performed by the OEM at such locations. The company does not intend, however, to permanently staff vendors at such locations. If warranty work is performed by the OEM at any of the named 14 stations, the company will assign an appropriate number of GSE mechanics covered by this agreement to provide support. If the company ceases mainline flying at any of the 14 named stations, the company shall, in consultation with the association, designate an additional station for coverage under this article. So I believe in the second paragraph for those folks here in Tulsa, that it states that you will continue to do the work that you're doing. V, in locations other than listed in paragraph U above, ground support equipment maintenance may be performed by GSE employees covered by this agreement or by a vendor. Miscellaneous. W, the company no later than February 15th of each year will provide the association and/or the association advisors documentation necessary to verify the company's compliance with the outsourcing provisions of this article. This documentation shall include a summary of the previous calendar year's base maintenance paid hours and vendor airframe base maintenance billed hours, and on an ongoing basis no later than 6 weeks following the end of the month. A summary of the previous month's base maintenance vendors' billable hours include tail numbers of the aircraft no later than 45 days following the end of each quarter. The company shall also provide the association a summary of AMT labor hours for both the association represented AMTs as well as for the international scheduled line maintenance work, whether performed by a company employee or a vendor. In addition, no later than 45 days following the end of each quarter. The company shall also provide the association a summary of the monthly scheduled line maintenance work performed at DWH measured in man hours. So there's how we're going to try to figure out where we're at. In our old book, we have what's called the JCAL committee, Joint Committee on Outsourcing of Work. For base maintenance, it was Jay Potter. He would go down every quarter, I believe it was, and he would come back and report out a percentage, whether we ticked up or down. It was always up. A percentage of outsourcing on cost, on spend, and now it's on billable man hours, which is a good thing. So if they have an equal number of folks that go to this meeting, I will be going for the Tulsa base if this is ratified. And we'll bring that information back and we'll report it out. X, time limit for grievance under this article will be 120 days from the date that the union discovers or reasonably should have discovered the claimed violation. Y, a review committee consisting of an equal number of company and association representatives with a maximum of 4 members each shall meet at least quarterly for the purpose of discussing the company's current practice and future plan for contracting aircraft, GSC, and facilities maintenance work. Z, the company may return to the manufacturer or its authorized agent parts and subassemblies for repair or replacement that are under warranty. Paragraph AA, the work to be performed by employees covered by this agreement does not include related indirect work performed by employees such as supervisors, management specialists, managers, analysts, professional employees, flight crews, dispatch, office, and clerical employees, agents, clerks, production assistants, staff assistants, and skycaps. BB, if a tech doc specialist project arises that requires immediate or time-sensitive attention, the company will meet with the union to discover how the project will be handled. CC, I'm not going to cover the rest of that tech doc paragraph. We don't, they're IM folks. We don't currently have them. CC, supervisory panel may perform QA work when required to meet the needs of service when quality assurance auditors are not immediately available to perform such duties to evaluate the initial scope and detail of the non-conformance issue as needed for urgent or sensitive high-level events. Supervisor may perform planner tech doc specialist work. EE, the type of maintenance audits being conducted by quality assurance auditors as, make sure I got the right page. Data ratification will continue to be accomplished by quality assurance auditors. The type of audits being conducted by other company employees and vendors, the data ratification may continue to be accomplished by other company employees and vendors. FF, bill of work decks for vendor heavy maintenance overhaul will continue to be built by base maintenance planners. GG, when an aircraft that is owned and or operated by American Airlines Incorporated is engaged in a charter flight off the company system, the company shall not schedule maintenance at locations where the company does not have AMTs covered by this agreement, and major problems shall be handled by sending association represented employees covered by this agreement for an appropriate field trip list unless prohibited by local laws. Job protection. System job protection. Drink coffee here.
Somebody wants you to cover that at the end. It's at the end. I mean, it's in here.
Okay, Kendall's got a question. I just want to have it in my head.
Do you want some water?
I'll take this.
You sure?
Somebody wants you to cover that at the end of this.
Okay, at the end, one of the questions, I just want to have them in my head as we go along. It's the Oasis. And got a question about the Oasis mod project. Okay, job protection, HH, system job protection. For the life of this agreement, no active employee or employee on a company-approved leave of absence who is covered by this agreement and whose name appears on the association master seniority lists on the date of ratification of this agreement will be laid off to the street, provided the employee exercises his seniority to the fullest extent in accordance with Article 12 recall. Number 2, this provision does not guarantee crew chief protection to the crew chief classification, but does provide protection to the basic classification. Simply means is as in my case a few years back, they come to me, they were reducing headcount in my shop. Danker, do you want to stay a crew chief in Tulsa or a crew chief external, or do you want to go to your basic classification? So here, 2, you have protection, but it's not to your crew chief classification, but to your basic classification of AMT. I guess that would mean cleaner, crew chief to cleaner as well. 3, system job protection shall not apply in circumstances where the company's non-compliance is caused in substantial part by conditions beyond the company's control. Conditions beyond the company's control shall include, but not limited to, an act of God, a strike by another company employee group, or the employees of a commuter air carrier operating pursuant to an authorized code share arrangement with the company. Number 3, a national emergency, which, I'm going to get the questions. Are we under a national emergency? Are they going to lay off because of the coronavirus? We're going to get those questions. An involuntary revocation of the company's operating certificate, grounding of a substantial number of company aircraft, reduction in the company's operating result from a decrease in available fuel supply caused by either government action or by commercial suppliers being unable to meet the company's demands, and the unavailability of aircraft scheduled for delivery. Item 7, why is it listed like that? Item 7 may only be triggered if the delay of delivery of aircraft inadvertently impacts the operation such that the company is required to reduce flying, necessitating a reduction in force. The duration of any reduction in flying will be a consideration before any reduction in force of this agreement. The company will provide station job protection to all employees covered by this agreement whose names appear on the association master seniority list and who are active on the company or on a company approved leave of absence. As the date of ratification of this agreement, station job protection will apply to the station and basic classification. Station and basic classification. Remember what we said about crew chiefs. So the basic classification that the employee holds on the date of ratification of the agreement, or in a station where an employee transfers, bids, or bumps into, and there is an
It is a typo.
I think that should be a, there is a, you can read this thing 1,000 times and try to get it right and you still mess stuff. Bumps into, and there is a more junior station protected employee in the same classification working in an active position on the station seniority list. Number 2, this provision does not guarantee crew chief station protection to the crew chief classification, but does provide station protection to their basic classification. Says the same thing. Station and system for crew chiefs. 3, station job protection will not apply in the event that all scheduled American Airlines Incorporated flight operations cease at a station for a period of not less than 1 year from the cessation of flights. The station job protection shall also not apply in circumstances where the company's non-compliance is caused in substantial part by conditions beyond the company's control as set forth above in section HH3 above. So I believe that the question would be, hey, Danker, they're parking airplanes. Hey, Danker, we're under a national emergency. I mean, do the conditions that we're currently under due to coronavirus would they apply? I believe on the conference calls that I've been on, explaining where Mr. Parker has been going up to the White House and what he's getting told by the current administration is that they want airlines to hold all their employees. They're hoping the coronavirus has a somewhat short lifespan. It peaks and then we start recovering economically. And so they're telling vendors that we're going to perform this work by our active employees. And Robert Isom has stated that they're going to do everything possible to keep our active employees busy and not have a layoff. But says right here in system job protection and station job protection that if this thing's ratified, you'll have those unless the company in 3 of job protection and also in 3 of station protection, if things get out of control, beyond their control, these protections don't apply. And that's the way it's always been in every contract that we've been under. Next one is station closing due to ceasing all flight operations. The station's closed due to cessation of all flight operations that is not due to circumstances beyond the company's control. They just simply decide that it's not profitable to fly into a station. Beyond the company's control is defined in paragraph HA. See above, and during the 1-year period thereafter, the company recommences flight operations. It shall restaff such station with employees covered by this agreement. And the following process will apply. Employees who had station protection at that station at the time of closing shall be offered on a one-time basis the first opportunity to fill the covered positions in the classification seniority order. If an employee offered such position accepts and is returned to work at that station during the 1-year period, such employee shall have his original station protection reinstated. If an employee offered such a position declines, such employee will remain in the status and location the employee occupies at the time, and any future openings at the station will be filled using recall and filling of vacancy articles in this agreement, Article 12 and 9. If it's basically meaning they put it up for bid and you use your seniority to get in and out of there. If a station is reopened more than 1 year after cessation of operations, all positions at such station will be filled using recall and filling of vacancy articles in this agreement. So if a station is reopened more than 1 year after they cease operation there, you'll just simply bid in. Station closing or reduction in manpower due to circumstances beyond the company's control. If due to conditions beyond the company's control as defined in paragraph HA3 above, a station is closed, employees covered by this agreement at the station are reduced, and during the life of this agreement, such station is reopened or manpower at station is increased, employees covered by this agreement shall be recalled, and the following process will apply. Employees who had station protection at the station at the time of closing or reduction shall be offered on a one-time basis the first opportunity to fill the covered position of class seniority order. If an employee offered such a position accepts and is returned to work at that station during the duration of this agreement, such employee shall have its original station protection reinstated. If an employee offered a position declined, such employee will remain in the station he's at, status and location at the time, and any future openings will be filled by recall, basically using his seniority to get in and out of there. Parallel operation. If the company establishes any new airline or acquires a controlling interest in any carrier which operates jet aircraft and mainline pilots on the American Airlines pilot seniority list perform revenue flying utilizing such aircraft, and all covered aircraft maintenance work on such aircraft shall be performed by employees covered by this agreement in accordance with the provision of this article. It's pretty simple. If our pilots fly them, then we work on them. If the company allows its code to be placed on any flight and the flight utilizes jet aircraft and mainline pilots on the American Airlines Incorporated pilot seniority list perform revenue flying utilizing such aircraft, then all covered aircraft maintenance work on such aircraft shall be performed by employees covered by the agreement in accordance with the provisions of this article. Again, it's pretty simple. They fly them, we work on them. All right, now that's scope for M&R. Did any questions come in, Al?
Oasis.
So let me answer this Oasis, and then we'll see if we get very many M&R questions, and then
Also, Charles Herb asked about probation.
okay.
We don't really have that covered on.
So yeah, we're getting some other questions about probation, and I've got the question out on probation. We switched from 180 calendar days to 90 working days. My position is they ought to switch you. Some guys would be off probation now if that happens. So that question's being handled by Mr. Gary Peterson. He said he would get back with me. He's going to work that and try to get that answer. So Oasis, we're going to answer the Oasis question in the back of.
M&R.
This is the M&R book. Okay, I was just looking. So this is the current book on page 223. Letters of memorandum. Oasis modification project, signed by Tim Klima and Mike Mays. Oasis modifications project. During the discussions leading to the joint collective bargaining agreement for the mechanic and related agreement, the parties discussed the Oasis modification project. It's a cabin retrofit. The company and the TWIM Mechanic and Related Association agree that all outsourced vendor billable hours related to the Oasis modification project for the 737 and the A321 will be counted towards the 50% base maintenance outsourcing percentage. So that paragraph is saying that if vendors do the work, it will add up and be used in the calculation for the outsourcing. Come on in, Marla.
Are y'all still video?
Yeah.
I still want you to know if you need help.
In order to maintain the Oasis modification schedule, the company and the association agreed to the following. If, however, at the end of the years 2021, 2022, the total base maintenance vendor billable hours, including any Oasis modification, exceeds the 50% outsourcing outlined in Article 6, the lesser of the actual outsourced Oasis modification hours of 50% of the number of total outsourced hours, including Oasis, that exceed the number of total insourced hours will not be counted toward the calculation for additional insourced hours required in the following year, as described in the M&R collective bargaining agreement. In the event that no Oasis work is outsourced during a calendar year, no change to that year's calculation shall be made. Then it has Jim Will's name on it. So this was not something that was discussed with my group. So I want to read this second paragraph again because it gets a little confusing. If you're like me and you lose focus about every 5 or 10 seconds from something happening around you, you got to read it again. In order to maintain the Oasis modification schedule, the company and the association agreed to the following. If, however, at the end of years 20, I'm writing this down, 2021, 2022, at the end of it, the total base maintenance vendor billable hours, including any Oasis modification, exceeds 50%, including Oasis mod, includes 50% outsourcing percentage outlined in Article 6, the lesser of the actual outsourced Oasis modification hours, or 50% of the number of total outsourced hours, including Oasis, that exceed the number of total insourced hours, the lesser of the actual outsourced Oasis mod hours. It's pretty wordy for me. The lesser of the actual outsourced Oasis mod. Is that the lesser between us and the vendors? Of the number of total outsourced hours that exceed the number of total insourced hours, the lesser of the actual outsourced hours, or 50% of the number of total outsourced hours. So it's measuring the Oasis hours against the other. I'm writing some stuff down. The lesser of the actual outsourced Oasis hours, so write that on one side, or the 50% of the number of total outsourced hours, including Oasis. So one is just Oasis, the other was everything, and it's wanting the lesser that exceed the number of total insourced hours. So the lesser of the two that exceed the number. So you take the lesser, and if it exceeds the total number of insourced hours, will not be counted toward the calculation for additional insourced hours required in the following year as described in M&R. In the event that no Oasis work is outsourced during account, no challenge. So they want the lesser of the two, Oasis by itself or Oasis with other outsourced work. And if the, let's see, if the lesser of either one of those exceeds the number of insourced hours that we have with all the bases combined, then they're not going to make the company add that back in the years at the end of 2021 and 2022. So at the end of those years, when they do this calculation, if they go, the lesser of those two goes over the insourced hours that we have at all of our bases combined, the company does not have to add that back in the following year. So the Oasis modification project gives the company the ability to have more outsourcing than what's required in the scope language. Al, did we have any other questions?
Yes, Isaac Pavic, I hope I'm saying that right. He wants to clear up the payroll switchover. And it says, will we be paying the company a week's pay at the same point, at some point? Or will they take this out of the signing bonus? And then it also said, what rate of pay will they be taking it back to at the original hiring wage or your current wage?
So anything like that would be a current wage. And then, so we've got a question. It's not scope related, but I'll answer it. It's the current paid in arrears conversation. So the company at some point in time, the discussions I've been in, it would come, we've asked for them to put it off for a year. That allows you to have other means to cross over on that week that they adjust your pay 1 week to be in arrears instead of active. That also means that when you do that, you'll adjust that at the rate that you're currently at when it happens. And then if you have a continued lengthy career at American Airlines, when you retire, the money that they're going to owe you at the end because you work, then get paid. So instead of currently retiring and not getting a paycheck, you will retire and then still receive a paycheck. It's almost like, you pay it now at a current rate, hope your pay goes up, and then at the end of your career, you're going to get back more than what you gave because your rate of pay changes. So that's the answer to that. We will go back in arrears 1 week at some point, and when that happens, The company has told us that they will offer a zero interest loan to the credit union, that you can have that to pay back, or you can possibly put vacation there, or you can possibly have, if this is ratified, you would have an opportunity to comp your holidays into a comp bank, and you could use that. I believe it's also talked about that you could put sick time there. So we'll understand more about that when they make it happen. Other questions, Al?
We were just wondering about compensation.
Okay.
Can you get? That starts at
11:30.
11:30.
Compensation can do it at 11.
Yeah, compensation, we're gonna do it 11:30. Al did remind me of this. I'm the least tech savvy guy here, or it's a race between Kendall Anderson and I for the least tech savvy, but that's why we have Al Ball. Al did tell me to say this at the start of this video, and I did not do it. Al, what am I supposed to say?
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe to this channel. There is some limitations by having less than 1,000 subscribers. There's some limitations that come with using YouTube Live. So if you have friends, or if you can figure out how to subscribe, ask them to subscribe. If I get over 1,000, which we're a long way from there, but if you could pass it around and have people subscribe, that lets me have a little more functionality with this YouTube Live. So trying to get over 1,000 would be.
Click on the bell whenever
be
they get to
nice.
this page to subscribe for any updates. Tell them when they get to this page, there's a little bell
Okay.
to click on it. That way you're subscribed.
And it gives you notifications.
Right.
Yeah. The guys are telling me that there's a bell that you can click on to subscribe, and it gives you notifications. I guess if I put out a new video, then that would give you a notification that,
There's a
that
question.
it's there.
There's a
Go ahead,
question
Terry.
come up. Which contract is better for layoff language?
Which contract is better for layoff language? So that's probably an opinion-based question, but my opinion is that the contract that you're going to vote on starting Wednesday, that we've been working on for almost 5 years, is significantly better. We've always had the threat of a layoff here in Tulsa because other airlines, I'm just going to use US Air for an example, or Northwest. I mean, pick an airline except Delta and United. They're still in the fray of doing base maintenance, but the other airlines over the period since 9/11, what did they do? They outsourced that work. I remember some things like full pay to the last day at Northwest. Well, that's exactly what they got. But we have fought to try to stay in business and base maintenance. But in base maintenance, if you was concerned about being laid off, we had what was called the juniority pool. So you didn't have what I call shotgun seniority. You look at the list and you get to go wherever your seniority will take you. Now, so there are some provisions, obviously, to go down through lower classifications and stay in station. But ultimately, if there was a RIF, a reduction in force, you would look at the seniority of your classification, and then you would choose to go to a station where you had more seniority than their lowest person on employed there at that station. So this language is greatly improved over what we used to have. If you got ripped out of Tulsa, I think it was Chicago and LaGuardia where you had to go to. And now, God forbid that happens, but now if something like that happens and you have a family member at some other station around the United States that maybe you could go and stay with if that happened, or friends there, then you had seniority, you could choose to go to that station. So I think that's a vast improvement. Is there any other questions? Okay. MLS. Linda, do you have
I have this. that
do you have
kind of-
highlights?
Yeah. That you could, and I wrote the articles, and you could kind of hit the highlights there and then
She has handed me the, put my glasses on, it's
the
smaller.
highlights of what has changed.
This is, was there one for M&R too? Do you have
I
that?
do.
That's probably, it's something that we worked on as a group. If you see these highlight sheets that are blue and yellow, thank you, Linda, for having that. Let me just cover the one for aircraft maintenance, and then we'll go over to MLS. So you said this just improvements, or does it? Okay.
On MLS.
So on the M&R side, in recognition and scope, this highlight sheet says system station job protection for the life of the agreement for any member on the seniority list or an approved leave of absence, data ratification. We covered that. AO will own a minimum 50% of billable overhaul hours in the contract, plus scope protection for hundreds of additional members to continue performing component shop and engine work. Covered that. Protection for the future with a floor of 2,600 AO members if the fleet size shrinks and the billable hours drop severely while maintaining component shop and engine work. We covered that. Using the current fleet size of 945 aircraft, the 2,600 AO headcount floor equates to 2.75 per aircraft, equaling the 2.75 M&R employees per aircraft required by Southwest AMPA contract. The 2,600 AO number does not include the contractually added jobs in components and engines or any member in facility GSC and line maintenance, providing thousands more jobs. Okay, MLS. Let me read this highlight sheet first, and then we'll get into MLS. Recognition and scope, it's the same article. They tried to keep the articles the same in all the books. So if you see in your index where it says intentionally left blank, that could be an article in another group that actually has some wording there, but it's left blank in a particular book. So if we're talking about scope, you could go to any of the books and it should be Article 6 scope. You go to vacation, which should be the same for everybody, would be the same article in all the books. Recognition and scope for the MLS group. Class and craft as recognized by the NMB board, NMB case number R-7424. So class and craft this time around by the National Mediation Board, MLS was moved out and given their own class and craft. I gotta get a drink. MLS will be staffed at all line maintenance locations that AMTs are staffed. That's kind of your job protection right there. If we're working on them and we're staffing a station, our MLS will be there to help us get the work done. MLS will be staffed at any maintenance base. So here in Tulsa, that's your job protection. MLS will be staffed at any distribution or warehouse on site or off-site facility where parts are stored, received, inventoried, shipped, or otherwise handled. System and station job protection for the life of this agreement for any member on the seniority list or on approved leave of absence at time of ratification, DOR. That's was on the cheat sheet. Now let's get into it. Okay. Article A talks about the case number by the NMB. Says that the association is given exclusive and sole collective bargaining, is the bargaining agent and given the rights to represent and negotiate this contract for you. Make a little room here. Okay. Skipping B. Going to, well, I'm not skipping B. I'm skipping the first paragraph of B. The company will staff MLS, material logistics specialist, at all line maintenance locations where aviation maintenance technicians, employees are staffed, as described in the M&R scope Article 6. The company will staff MLS at any distribution warehouse on-site or off-site facility where the company aircraft parts and materials are stored, received, inventoried, shipped, or otherwise handled. Material logistics specialists shall be staffed at any maintenance base. Material logistics specialist shall be staffed at CLT, and Philly is CLT. No, that's Charlotte, right?
Charlotte.
What's Cleveland? I get that.
CLE.
CLE. And Philly ground equipment maintenance locations. We're not in conflict with facilities maintenance work. MLS employees may set up necessary freestanding or / unattached shelving. This agreement shall apply to association represented employees covered by the agreement on international field trips or work performed by them in the course of other foreign duties. Job protection. System job protection. For the life of the agreement, no active employer or employee on a company approved leave of absence who is covered by this agreement and whose name appears on the association master seniority list on the date of ratification of this agreement will be laid off to the street provided the employee exercise seniority to the fullest extent in accordance with Article 12. Just the same verbiage as in the M&R. And provision does not include guarantee crew chiefs to be protected to their classification, but provides basic. Same. Number 3, Article 3. Don't let me get that all messed up there. Article 3 is the same as in M&R. Talks about force majeure, act of God type language. Station job protection. For the life of the agreement, goes down through. I'm looking for something. That language is the same as well. Closing stations due to ceasing all flight operations. I'm just looking at it to see if it's any different. I believe it's the same, Linda. Station closing due to reduction in manpower due to circumstances beyond the company.
It is.
Okay.
It's going to match yours.
Parallel operations match, and then it gets into classifications.
Yeah.
So
Ours is pretty short.
yeah. So Linda, is there anything that you would like to add or say? You have an opinion of? I'm perfectly cool with you coming and sitting in this chair.
You talked about facility maintenance and that we can do the freestanding
Right,
or
shelving.
unattached shelving. That is good, but
Yeah.
we still need to make sure that it is MLS can do it and not take away from our brothers and sisters in facility maintenance. I want to make that clear.
Yeah. So if you get into if you're MLS and you get into a situation where you're asked to build shelving or erect the shelving, just make sure that, please make sure that we don't get into a situation where we're filing a grievance against our other classification. The language is in there that you can do that, but let's see.
John had that question.
Okay. John has a question here. Will this change how the work is now being done in the TEO shop? So
Yes, to some extent it will change, and we'll have more details once the contract is signed. But yes, it is going to, because of the contract with the MLS as it reads now, we get a lot
Right.
of our work back.
okay. So Linda's setting off to the side here, and she's answering John's questions about just the general question about the scope in an area here in Tulsa, the TEO building, and the question is, will this change our work? And Linda's saying that yes, it will change to some degree if this is ratified, because they get some of the work back that we feel this huge change that was taking place in the TEO building. The company attempted to kind of shuffle that work around and have other people doing it. So Linda is under the impression and the belief that it will change. Some of the work will come back to you guys. Other questions, Alice, or any other questions?
Looks good.
So, as Al schooled me up here on this video, it has a little microphone, and I believe if I click on that microphone, it mutes it. So I'm going to mute it. I'm going to get up and walk around and stretch my legs, and I'm going to wait to see if any other questions come in. So if questions come in, I'd like to be able to click back off and mute and answer the question. So those of you that logged in, I appreciate it. Like I said, if we get more people to subscribe to where I can get it above 1,000 subscribers, that might be very difficult to do, even though we have more than enough here at the Tulsa Basin. Not everybody comes to meetings. I like to say we don't all drink beer, the same kind of beer, and go to the same church together. So, but in this circumstance, if you could ask your friends or your coworkers, if you are tuned in, you could ask them to subscribe and click the little bell. With this coronavirus on, guys and gals, I don't know how bad it's going to get. Like I said, out of around 4,600 members that we have here in Tulsa, we traditionally get about 160, 180 folks that come to the monthly meetings. So I get it. You like to do your job, and you have your personal life, and you like to go home and do your thing. We all like to do that. But this new contract, if it's ratified in, we're going to be, all of us are going to be under it's going to be a heavy lift to get to some of the changes that are going to be in it. I'm not saying all bad. It's just the ones that are new that are going to be beneficial to us, trying to get us all on the same page, trying to get it Hangar 5 doing the same as Hangar 6, doing the same as Hangar 1, 2, 3, and the turbine building. And typically this new contract book, instead of having tons and tons of letters of agreement that you typically vote on a contract and they're not even talked about or signed yet, or it would say, oh, the overtime guidelines will be figured out by the local and the company at a later date after ratification. Well, none of that mess exists now. The book, and if you haven't got your book mailed to you,
Some people got them Friday.
yeah,
Some people got them Saturday.
they started coming Friday and Saturday. But if you don't get one, you can always stop by the hall and we'll print you out one. I believe that you can put the company's computer to task and printer. I believe you can actually print the thing off sitting right there in your work area. But get your contract book and look through it and ask your questions. But there's my opinion, as I've stated before, there's a few things in here I don't like, but there's a lot more in here that I do like. And I'm going to vote yes and keep fighting the fight to try to fix the things that I don't like. Al, did any other questions come in?
There's a question from a fellow named Brad Bruger.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he wants to know something about crew chief ratios. Did that change? And is it in the scope language?
Brad, he's asking, is it in the scope language? He's being sneaky. Crew chief ratio. The crew chief ratio, I believe, without digging into it here and finding it, is Kendall, can you find where the crew chief ratio is at?
Where it says any over 3
Yeah. The fourth
to 16.
the fourth person of a crew will require the company to have a crew chief. If you get and the maximum, what was it, 16?
Yes.
The maximum is 16. So
Max is 16.
if you had 18, is that one crew chief and then 2 without a crew chief? If they're on the same shift, my position would be they would have to adjust it to where they would get 2 crew chiefs. If they put 16 and then park 2 on another shift with a different set of days off, that's another conversation. So I believe the Tulsa base will eventually have more crew chiefs here, but
I've heard they're gonna
We'll
need
see.
an additional 42
Kendall said he's heard he's going to need an additional 42. So
in
is
Tulsa.
there a crew chief ratio? Yes, there is. And is it in scope language? Question mark. Thanks. I believe it's in classification, but
It is.
without it is
It is in classification, but I don't know where it is for maintenance.
okay.
It's in there for MLS and E as in Edward.
So I wasn't prepared for classification discussions. Al, when is classification coming up?
I believe it's next. Let me verify.
Maybe at 11:30.
3:30 p.m. we'll be covering Article 7 classification.
Today. So
Correct.
at 3:30 today, Brad Bruger signed back in at 3:30. And I'll have page paragraph for your answer, but there is a crew chief ratio. It's any above 3, there shall be a crew chief, no more than 16. And one of the other work groups, I think that ratio is different, but I think maybe it's fleet service. There's so much information. It's for MLS. What is it, Linda?
3. Ours is 3. If we break 3 or more, then we have to get another crew chief.
And what's M&R?
4.
So is M&R after 4, there's a crew chief?
4, and if they break it, then there's going to be a crew chief.
Okay.
That was my understanding, but
We'll go-
obviously we'll verify.
We're going to look it up. I knew there was a difference in the number,
Mhm.
but it's the top
Right.
number is 16 on both, right?
On both, the top number's the same.
It's the requirement of the amount of people on the bottom that we believe there's a difference. So
Mhm.
Linda's saying she believes it's 3, above 3 for MLS, and it might be above 4 for M&R. We're going
4 and
to
above or 3.
hunt that down. Okay. Al, we good?
One more question is, will the 6K bonus and vacation pay be sent together?
That's a good question. We don't know the answer to that because consistently now it's been asked about this implementation schedule. And I believe the union leaders are waiting for the company to give them the schedule and what they can feel like they can commit to and hold up, keep their word, so to speak. And as soon as we get that implementation schedule and it gets vetted by our upper union leaders, it'll get put out and posted. But so 6K signing bonus if ratified, the pay for the vacation you would have accrued in 2019 had this been ratified back then. That week of vacation, is that the only 2 pay pieces, the bonus and the vacation? Kendall, can you think was there any other
I'm
pay
sorry, I'm
pieces?
still looking at line crew chiefs is there on page 19.
Was there any
Okay,
other pay
yeah.
pieces?
On the 6K, what we heard when we went a couple of weeks ago, the 6K was told to us after the date of signing, date of ratification, that would be paid within 40 to 65 days.
Yeah,
45 to
And
60.
the other one, 40 to 65. And the other one was, what was the other
the
question?
vacation pay. I mean, it's all going to be on the implementation schedule. So
That's supposed to be within 45 days
I won't
of the,
even take a guess at that. They put out an implementation schedule
Yep.
of when these things will be paid, and I'm sure on that same schedule it'll say if this contract is ratified, that your basic pay will start, your premium pay, anything that's tied to your job that you currently do, it'll all be tied back to a certain date. I believe that'll be April 1st, but or the Monday following the ratification, if that's April 1st. But we'll have that when that list becomes available, we'll put it out. Al, did any other questions come in?
There was one more from John that said, should the crew chiefs all work Monday through Friday? All work, it says Monday, Friday, work weeks then. If not, 7-day coverage.
I don't understand that question.
Yeah, I'm just going to say the way it's He
So,
must have made a
Here's where
statement.
this class, here's where all that
Crew
stuff
chiefs.
is on page.
so I'm assuming that's John that asked that.
Same
So
John.
what I would say to that, and John, you can let us know
You're
if we
gonna
get,
cover this
if
later
we
anyway.
understand it correctly. The days off with the crew chief are not changing. We're still going to be a 7-day coverage. I will double check that language to make sure that I'm telling you correctly. But as far as I know it to be right now, we are still a 7-day coverage. Let me double check the language in the book, and then I will get back to you, and Dale can unmute it when we're ready. But let me find out that exact answer so I tell you correctly.
Okay. All right, John. So John, Linda's gonna hunt your answer down and make sure. So Al, anything else come in?
No, repeat on the pay, on whether it would be, the question is, it should be done on your higher date pay and not on the current rate of pay.
Oh,
Right.
That's what Greg Dodds said. I'd reminded him that you already stated it would be current
Yeah.
pay.
So Kendall did find that Brad's question on the crew chief in Article 7 classification, page 19, paragraph F. Crew chief shall be maintained on duty when 3 or more employees are on their shift in each location. Department hangar facility at a shop, line maintenance location, Charlotte, DFW, LAX, LaGuardia, Chicago, Miami, Philly, and Phoenix. A crew chief shall be maintained on duty when 4 or more employees are on their shift in each location, shop, department, hangar, facility at all other line stations not mentioned above and at maintenance bases. In no case will a crew chief, lead, director assign a crew chief more than 16 employees. So it's 3 or more. There shall be a crew chief, Charlotte, line station, Charlotte, DFW, LAX, LaGuardia, Chicago, Miami, Philly, Phoenix. 3 or more. There'll be a crew chief. At the bases and the other line stations, not listed, it's 4 or more. So Brad, there's your question to that, page 19. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to next cover what at when? 11 something?
11:30.
11:30.
You'll be covering Article 11 seniority and Article 16 compensation.
Okay. Article 11 seniority, Article 16 compensation at 11:30. Please ask anybody that's tuning in with you to hit this YouTube and subscribe. It'll give me more options to be able to come to you guys. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.
you need to.
Final.
I am.
So how do I get on? I've got this.
Hey.
Does that mean I'm on there?
Did you go to YouTube?
I got Dale.
Okay.